mute that, and let's blow this popsicle stand. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Atheist Reformation Podcast. I am your host, Drew. Joining me today, as always, is Mr. William Albrecht of Patristic Pillars. If you want to check him out, there is a link to his website down in the description below. If you want to support the channel, please like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bells, all those fun things. And if you're feeling really super duper generous, I do have a Patreon link in the video description below. So, topic of discussion today, I'll go ahead and broach the topic of discussion today, is religion dangerous? Now, we've talked about religious fundamentalism, we've talked about a few different things here and there in the past few weeks, but today we're going to get into something a bit nitty-gritty, at least as far as most people are concerned, and to some extent, I'm willing to bet that you and I will reach some form of disagreement on this. So...
We might.
Who'd have thought? An atheist and a Catholic disagreeing on something to do with religion. Whatever is the world coming to? Excuse me again. Got 3 beers with me today, and trust me, today those 3 beers will be enough in comparison to what normally is consumed on this show, but we'll get to that in just a minute. So we have had a bit of a delay in release, at least in this month, and that has been due mostly to scheduling issues, and to top it all off, I did go to the Renaissance Festival here in Texas just a week ago, and
how was that?
It was a flipping blast, man. You should have come down. You got to come with us
next
next year. You got to come with us next
year.
I've
got to find the time. You know what? Next year, I'm there.
All right, next year you're there. I'll tell you one thing. I won't be drinking out of it today because then we wouldn't get to see, the lovely brews that are coming out of these bottles. But I do have with me a commemorative stein from the Texas Renaissance Festival. This year This is the 2019 edition. They have a new edition every year. I did not get the 45th anniversary edition one because it was just a little too pricey, but this one suits me just fine, and I think is a fine start to my Stein collection overall.
How much did that one run you?
This one, after, good old-fashioned tax, title, and license, all that fun stuff, it was like $72. But it's
not bad at all.
No, it's all earthenware. It's a true pewter lid, true pewter hinge. You can very much tell.
Beautiful.
You can tell that the hinge setup was machined, but I'm not too concerned about that. There's definitely some really good little scroll work and stuff like that on the lid of the Stein, and of course, nice good ceramic earthenware all the way through. And they make limited runs of these. They all have the same numbering on the bottom. So, don't get in a tizzy because it just says 1 of 780. It is not the very first one made. It is just one of the 780 run line. So,
right.
Tons of fun. Or at least I had a blast. All that fun stuff. I also did get something else for all you tobacco enthusiasts out there. I actually came across a very beautiful handmade pipe that was out there that I ended up having to get. Very nice. Just kind of more of a collector thing than anything else, but will probably get used because they did talk me into buying a couple of bags of pipe tobacco, and they have some really good deals out there at the fair from it's Caveman Tobacco Company. They're based out of not Midland, Texas. I cannot. Brenham, Texas, I think is what it is.
That does look incredible. Looks great.
And for whatever reason, your camera keeps shrinking, so I'm just going to be keeping an eye on this.
I don't know why. Corrected. Weird.
Skype does weird things sometimes, or it could be maybe something to do with the latest NDI update for how I pull all the camera feeds into Streamlabs to make everything work properly. who knows? I'm not too terribly worried about it right now. I'm just happy that we're back in action. We're streaming. We're having some fun,
Oh yeah. Oh
and
no doubt.
we're gonna
Oh
have a
no
good
doubt.
time. Gonna have a good discussion, I think.
I think we're gonna have a great time.
Awesome. That's fantastic. All right. So, you know what? You go ahead since you brought.
I was about to tell you I'm gonna have to interrupt, and I'm gonna show mine first.
Absolutely. Please do. Please do.
All right. I've got me a big boy here.
Yeah.
This
Big
is
hops.
what's a growler? It's a
Oh yeah.
growler.
Yeah.
You
Definitely
know
a
what a
growler.
growler is.
Oh, I
I
know
went
what
ahead and I
those
went
are.
to a brewery. I went ahead and I grabbed this. This is 512 pecan porter. In
Okay.
case
So it's
anybody
based out
would
of
like to
Austin.
know, yeah, you beat me to it. Yeah, 512 area code of Austin.
Hey,
Um,
I used to live in San Antonio. 210, 512. You get used to hearing that number thrown around a lot.
have you had the pecan porter?
No, I have not had.
Oh,
I've actually not had
it's
any of.
great.
I have not had any of their brews. Unfortunately, I left the San Antonio area before I reached the what is it? The not the age of reason. Although as soon as you're able to consume alcohol, I guess we could consider that the age of reason because we have to kill things inside us from time to time.
We do have a comment in the chat room. Anthony is saying that you went dark, but for me, you look fine. I don't know.
I
I
went
don't know what he
dark.
means. Yeah, you look
I'm
perfectly fine.
I think it's to do with the lighting overall. I did have a light that was mounted behind my monitor that gave me a bit of
Okay,
additional lighting. That one went out, so I do apologize for the overall
I'm gonna pop it
darkness
open.
that the stream has today. Hopefully, going to be replacing that soon and get that back up and running. So apologies. Well, I guess no longer in advance. My face will be periodically lit up, at least better, because I do have my computer monitor on full brightness. So as I transition back and forth between my streaming software and the web pages themselves, this will hopefully at least keep me fairly well lit, so people can see this big, beautiful, fat, bearded face of mine. Although not even really bearded, more like half goateed because I shave the sides of my face. It's itchy. I don't feel like dealing with it, and it's weird.
Trying to move my
My genetics are a little weird when it comes to that. Like the hair on top of my head is nice and silky smooth and fine, but when it starts,
Oh,
but
you've got a great head of hair there.
but when it
I'm jealous.
starts, you should be Baldy. You should be. Uh, uh, but as far as facial hair goes, it's always curly and stuff like that, and it itches as it grows, and I don't feel like dealing with it. Let's see what else we got going on here today. Um, I'll just leave the web page open to satiate Anthony's lighting conniption he might be having right now. So I'll go ahead and introduce my first one. Before we go any further, what was the ABV on the 512 pecan porter?
6.8.
6.8.
Yeah, I'm
Not.
going lightweight today.
I was going to say, not bad, my young Padawan friend. The glass I'm rocking today is going to be a blast from the past. Some people may recognize this, a lot of people won't. It is a KN root beer mug. That
Oh,
hasn't been around in a very, very long time. Um, I'm trying to remember. I know they're based out of Cuero, Texas. They might still be around. They don't use this design anymore. I know that their restaurant is still open. I think there's one in Graham, Texas. I just don't remember for sure if the original owners are actually still running all the KN root beer stuff anymore. But most people don't really know about
oh
them.
wow,
It's a bit like
right.
A&W, very very sweet, very sarsaparilla type root beer. So anyway, I will break out my. This may offend you, William, but I'm going to break out my weakest beer for the evening.
Oh,
Uh,
what is
this is,
that?
this is made by the Avery Brewing Company in Boulder, Colorado. This one is part of their annual barrel series. This is called Uncle Jacob's Stout. out of batch number 7. It was bottled February 6th of 2018, and usually that's kind of a no-no for beer in some instances, but in this case it's okay because this is a beer that has gone beyond your typical beer. They do a bit of freeze distilling, I believe, at that brewery, and this one is rocking a, what is it? A 15.9 ABV.
Whoa. Wow.
So we are up
Yeah.
in wine territory, I believe.
Wow.
But this, gosh, this foil is given fits at times. But, you know, can't argue with the presentation overall. Alright, let's see if this is enough to... Yep, and there we go. So let's see. Whew, that's a strong smelling beer. I like it already. Haven't even tasted it yet. So I guess we'll go.
I got to get me one of those. Without a doubt, I got to get me one of those.
Oh man, that is black as coffee. That is black as my morning coffee. Almost no sud to it. Oh man, this is a beer that if you want something to hurt you, I think this will do the trick. Wow. Okay, so the bottle itself is brown, but it's a very light, almost amber brown. So a good chunk of that darkness, well, I think it's pretty obvious where it came from. So anyway, first round of the day. Prost.
Prost.
Whew. That is really interesting.
Mm.
That is, it's got a nutty flavor to it, almost
Can't really get a
peanut
look in the
buttery.
mind. Mine's very dark.
Oh yeah,
How's it taste?
it's nutty. It's like peanut buttery.
Wow.
It's not something I would have expected out of a beer. I would not have expected a peanut buttery taste. Like,
Wow.
it's almost not even peanut butter. This is definitely a sipping beer. It's got a wicked bite to it, though. But that's okay. I'm okay with that. All right, so, Anthony, we will never leave you alone. There is no escape. See his comment in the chat.
I didn't know what he meant by that.
Yeah, I think it's because I was messing with him a little bit. Anyway, so I guess we should go ahead and get right down to business. For those who are not familiar with the platform that we kind of have our discussions on, this isn't a debate. This is just a free-form discussion, a hangout between two buds. That's really all this is. But we like to have these discussions, and we figured there was at least a few people out there that like to either listen to these discussions or have these discussions on their own, and maybe just didn't have the time or the way to do it, so that's what we're trying to do for y'all today. Or really, any day. So anyway, let's get right down to it. Is religion dangerous? I'm going to say right out of the gate, William, you are probably going to say no to that.
I think it would really depend. I think religion can be dangerous. I don't think every religion is dangerous. I think it would really depend, though. I think that, believe it or not, I would agree with you. I think some of them can be very dangerous. I think the Jehovah's Witness religion is a very dangerous one. I think the tenets and their theology that they have are dangerous. I think I'll even toss in some forms of Protestant fundamentalism. I think they can be dangerous as well. I don't think all religions are dangerous, though, in general.
Okay. Yeah, I would say probably one of the only religions I don't find dangerous per se. I guess I wouldn't even really particularly call a religion, but I do believe it actually has the status as a religion in the United States, and that is Dudism.
Mm.
It's
Dudism? I've never heard of that.
yes, it's basically modeled after The Big Lebowski. Remember that movie from
Oh, yeah.
back in the '90s? Jeff Bridges and John Goodman and all them. And the
Oh, I
the
remember.
reason why I bring up dudism, and this is because I got this on a dare, and I found this utterly hilarious, and I've always enjoyed having it. And that is because I am actually a card carrying member as a dudist priest since March 9th of 2018. I have officially been an ordained minister of the Church of Latter Day Dude for over a year.
What is that that you're pulling out?
Oh, that is my membership card for
That is so cool.
as an ordained minister identification card, identifying me as a
That
dudist
is
priest.
cool.
Yep, yep. It's got my full name on there. I'm really not totally concerned with that. I've been an employee of the state of Texas before, so
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure my full name is public record anyway.
Oh yeah.
At least in this
No
state.
doubt.
But anyway, so as far as my particular stance on is religion dangerous, I will say that some of the context within religion, some of the connotations of it, especially if it's parading itself as being peaceful, peace loving, love your fellow man, that kind of thing. Those kinds of
Yeah.
messages, I personally don't have a beef with. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. However, I do find that religion, as a whole, to certain extents, can be a little bit dangerous to some degrees, especially when it comes to things such as thought control and issues like that.
Yeah, I agree.
And this is one thing that is inescapable from any religion. At no point is a religion, or at least an organized religion, I guess I can restrict that a little bit further. At no point is an organized religion not engaged in some manner, method, or form of thought control. Now, that's not always designed to be negative, per se. Um, we use thought control in things like behavior modification, stuff like that. However, it can reach a dangerous level at times, I think.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts
Yeah,
on
no
that?
doubt. I agree. No, I agree with you a whole lot. I don't know if every kind of religion were to be kind of you would be like, I guess, in the business of controlling your thoughts or really forcing you to do certain things. I think some of them are. I think when we go down that road, for instance, within the Jehovah's Witness religion or even within Mormonism, I think when we go down that road, I think it's a very dangerous road. It can be a very, very slippery slope downwards, especially when we talk about in the JW religion, shunning. I've got a few friends that are very, very familiar with the religion, and I know you know very well that they do encourage shunning if you were to fall away from the JW faith and
Yeah,
become
they don't talk to
Catholic or
apostates
whatever.
and things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah,
Oh man, I
it's
mean
really they just
that to
don't
me,
talk
that
to apostates. Period, for the most
yeah.
part. Uh,
There you go. Yeah, but even beyond that, even beyond the familial level, I think that a religion can reach the point of being unhealthy and be dangerous in another manner, in the sense that if you control somebody to the point of absolutely totally taking over their lives, that can be negative. Let me give you an example. I've known a few people within evangelicalism, and I don't lump them all together, but I've known a few people within the evangelical faith where they a few of the factions push the the requirement to give the tithing. And I've known people that have been practically destitute that have still given that percentage because they've been told that they're not going to receive the graces of God. And when we go down that road, I think that is very, very dangerous.
and I think that potentially things of that nature could be what have given way to issues that we see within the prosperity gospel. People
No doubt.
like, and you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and start name dropping a few of them. You know, people like who is it? Ray Tilton,
Yeah.
Creflo Dollar, uh, Jim Baker. I'm
Oh yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Jim Baker. His whole, buy my doomsday bucket.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
I,
no,
I
I
mean,
agree
I
with
mean,
you.
I'm all for preparedness. If you want to be prepared for a
Pour a little
natural
more.
disaster, or for, as some people in like the doomsday prepper community call it, uh, WWOR, or World Without Rules, uh, or without, or WRL, which is without rule of law. That kind of thing. I get if a person wants to be prepared for things like that. That's fine. Do it. Be prepared. Do like Scar said in The Lion King. Be prepared. But I mean, just don't buy from Jim Baker. Just don't buy from him.
Yeah.
I don't care who you buy from, except for that little guy. Um, Man,
Yeah,
it
I
just
agree with
his
you, and I think
positions on everything just irk me. And we don't. I don't discuss politics typically, especially not on this show. I've kicked around the idea of starting another channel just for political discussions. I might do it here in the future. I want to kind of see where this goes first and foremost. But
that would be cool.
and I'd love to have you on there too. I mean, because I'm sure we could find a couple things to
Definitely,
agree on and a few things to disagree on. Uh,
no doubt.
but I will say this: when it comes to my personal political philosophy, I'm not a part of any political party. To quote Jeff Daniels from the newsroom, over the years I have supported candidates on both sides of the aisle for varying
Right.
reasons. For varying reasons. But at the end of the day, as the meme says, you know what? I just want people to be able to smoke weed while carrying a Glock at their gay best friend's wedding. And nobody say anything about it, and nobody getting a tiff about it. Because, yeah, call me a libertarian if you really want to. I'm not really sure I fully subscribe to anything. And that may be why, when it comes down to
Yeah,
talking to
I
people.
think a lot of people would definitely have objections to all of those.
No, I'm sure they would. You're not going to find a single person. Well, you're. I'm not going to say you're not going to find a single person. I'm going to say that you are not going to go up to. How do I word this? Gosh. There is no way that there is not at least one person in each state that disagrees with me. There's no way there's not at least one.
Right. Oh, no doubt.
I would
Yeah.
go. I would go so far as to say that I would be hard pressed to find a single town, hamlet, village, idiot, municipality, or unincorporated territory that didn't have at least one person that disagreed with me on some fundamental issue. And that's fine.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of this country. That's the purpose of having our, not a democracy, but a constitutional democratic republic. Well, sort of. Not really a democratic republic. Uh, excuse me. Constitutional representative republic. That's the appropriate term. Had to dig deep and
Yeah.
remember my political science class from a long time ago.
It's been a while, eh?
Ah, I won't even say it's been a while. It's 2019. I finished. I finished that particular course in 2014, 2015, something like that. It's been 4 or 5 years, somewhere in that range. It's been about that. But yeah, no, I mean, I just that kind of stuff irks me, and when it comes to Jim Baker on many things. But anyways, that's one of the primary ways that I see religion, uh, in general, as dangerous, because you are going to have people that capitalize on that do these bad things. And and I do understand that using that same vein of logic, you could reach a similar conclusion about things such as government. And you'd be absolutely right.
Valid point. Valid point.
Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot for the life of me remember who said it, but democracy, this constitutional representative republic. You know what? It's the worst system of government, but it's still better than anything else we've tried up to this point. Is there
Yeah,
something?
it does seem to be working better than most.
Oh yeah, definitely working better than socialism. Sorry, Bernie Bros, you're
Oh,
just wrong. I'm sorry.
you just offended a lot of people, didn't
I
you?
know I did. I know I did. I know I did. But there again, I didn't start this
I'm not a
channel to be.
supporter of Bernie. Don't worry.
Oh, I know you're not. Um, I mean, well, I don't know. You might be able to find a Roman Catholic out there that's a Bernie bro or a Bernie
Mm.
sis. Or I don't know what they call themselves at that point. Um,
You probably could. It'd be quite odd, though.
I agree. I agree. It would be odd. It would be odd. But I do think that such a person probably exists.
No, I agree with you. I do agree completely. Um, Very odd, though. Very odd position to
It
hold.
would be a very odd position to hold. Uh, but there again, that's like me. I hold odd positions uh, as compared to quite a few other people. Um, like, okay, most people assume that atheism, part and parcel, means you must go hand in hand, skipping down the lane, as a blue dog Democrat.
Mm. Not all of
I
them.
no, not all of them. Hashtag not all atheists, or however the hell the kids do it these days. I look young,
Hmm.
but I am 30. It's the fat; it keeps the wrinkles away. But anyways, you know, yeah,
Yeah,
not
really good
it's
points, though. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, we can. There's so many examples of dangers that we can definitely encounter in religion. And I know the show is about whether or not religion is dangerous. So, really, to me, in my opinion, it would be going off topic to kind of talk about the positive aspects. But I mean, there's so many positive aspects about religion. But really focusing on whether or not that we can find the danger in religion. I think going back to the very beginning when we read about what Paul says. Paul's talking to the church in Galatia. And he tells them if they preach something different, something contrary to what he's showing them, he tells you that that gospel is in essence heretical. It is anathema in essence. I think the message that he's trying to convey is that certain religions, certain mindsets do lead you down or can lead you down a dark path. Some of them really can lead you to not just lose your family, but really lose a whole lot more than just that. And in that case, really, a lot of forms of religion can be very dangerous.
I do agree with that, but the question is, all of them do come from, you know, at the end of the day, you come down to how do we define a religion? I mean, how do we really define what a religion is? Does a what does being a religion mean? Now there's probably a bunch of different definitions here and there. Um,
Hmm.
the primary definition, as soon as you punch in religion on Google, the first thing that pops up is, the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. Then it comes down
Hmm.
to a particular system of faith and worship. Okay, looks like we have lost contact with William. I'm going to try and get him back real quick and get this going. So I do apologize in advance, everybody.
I do not know what happened there. Huh? That was odd.
That is perfectly all right. I will get your
Okay.
camera corrected here. Things happen. It's okay.
There we go.
Yep. Live troubleshooting, people. This is how it's done. I know this is probably not the most efficient way I could be doing this, but hey, I'm fairly new to Streamlabs, so pointers, tips, tricks, drop them in the comments, or link me to YouTube videos. Hey, I'm all for learning no matter what. So, all right, we've got that back up and running. Let me check
There
YouTube
you go. I do.
itself to
Yeah,
make sure.
that does look fine.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now that I've got it all resized properly, I'm watching it. We're on a 30-second delay in here. So
Oh, no
see,
big deal.
watching my
No
live
biggie.
troubleshooting after I've done it is actually kind of cool.
Right.
But anyway, so going back and talking about a religion as a whole, it's like the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods, or a particular system of faith and worship, or a pursuit or interest to which someone ascribes supreme importance.
Mhm.
I'm not too big on that last one. To me, it tends to, for lack of a better term, overgeneralize the definition of of a religion.
Right. Yeah, I agree with
And
you. It does
so
seem to overgeneralize. Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of that one per se.
Yeah. No, I agree with you completely. It does seem to overgeneralize it. I think I'm not exactly certain how I would define it. I guess it would really vary, but it does seem to overgeneralize it. I think some people like to even called an obsession with something kind of like the religion of a certain person. So I mean, it really, I guess, it really depends on how you want to define it. I know it does vary
Hmm.
from person to person, perhaps.
It does, but what I will say is I think probably one of the most comprehensive definitions for a religion, or for the word religion, especially as we understand it in the modern context, would have to come from. I've been listening to it as an audiobook recently. However, you can watch uh, large portions of it on YouTube on the YouTube channel Aaron Ra. It's ARONRA. For anyone
Yeah, I've heard of him.
who is not already familiar with this uh, prolific uh, paleontological philosopher. That's how I would describe him because he did a lot of stuff with paleontology, or he enjoys it.
He's a debater as well, I believe.
He is a debater, although he doesn't do a lot of debates anymore.
Oh, okay.
I think after his last video exchange debate with Kent Hovind, it really kind of, well, for lack of a better term, pissed him off,
Oh,
because
wow.
you really see Kent, Mr. Hovins. He's not a doctor. Mr. Hovins, um, disingenuity. His overall
Mm.
being disingenuous. He's not. I'm not even. I wouldn't even say he's not a good person because, well, you know, at end of the day, he's a convicted tax fraud. So that should tell
Wow, I
you.
didn't know that.
Yeah, Kent Hovind, absolutely. He is a convicted tax fraud. He goes on ad nauseum, wanting to split hairs, saying it's like, I was convicted of structuring. Um, that's, well, let me get up close and personal for this one for you, Kent. That's still tax fraud, buddy. Anyway,
That's correct.
you gotta go for effect sometimes. And of course, you're back on little mini cam, but
That
that
is
is
so
a
odd.
Skype's just being goofy or NDI's being goofy. I'm not too concerned with it either way. I'll get it figured out at some point. But for the purposes of this show, you know, this is a show that can be consumed either visually or strictly uh, auditorily. Right? I guess that's
No doubt.
anyway. So the definition.
Yeah, so I've got to hear that debate. Then it didn't go. Did it not?
Oh
Did
no, no, no.
Hovind, I guess, use a lot of red herrings? I guess.
Hovind. In all honesty, Hovind did such a terrible job that he was effectively handing examples to Aaron that proved Aaron's case.
Mm.
That is how much Hovind does not understand. At this point, evolution is really basic middle school science.
Oh, so they debated evolution then?
Yes, they debated evolution. It
Oh.
it's drawn out, man. It's really drawn out. I actually sat through and watched all the videos that Aaron posted and the entireties, the hours long diatribes that Hovind responded with. And I must say, I have not seen something more devoid of content since the last time I painted a wall stark white and put nothing on it. He talked in circles about nothing for quite literally hours on end. But anyway, the
And
definition.
they did this in person.
No, they did not do this in person. This was video exchanges over YouTube.
Okay.
Or videos sent to each other, yada, 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 that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, it was bad. It was not a fun
Well,
time for anyone. It was, if Kent Hovind was not embarrassed by his performance there, he should be. And I'm sure Aaron came away from that far more annoyed and feeling that a great deal of his time was wasted. But I can't speak for either gentleman in that regard. However, steering back onto the topic a little bit, Aaron Ra, his definition for religion, and this is one that I think is actually pretty comprehensive. It's pulled from his book, The Foundational Falsehoods of Creationism. It's primarily talking about issues with creationism itself versus teaching evolution and the issues between the two. But this is pulled from his fifth foundational falsehood of creationism, and this is the definition. Every belief system, which is commonly accepted as a religion by both its adherents and its critics, is a doctrine of ritual traditions, ceremonies, mythology, and the associated dogma of faith-based belief systems, which all include the idea that some element of self, be it a soul or portion of the consciousness or memories, etc., may, in some sense, continue beyond the death of the physical being. This applies to every religion and only to religion. So, to me, this is
yeah,
probably.
I definitely disagree with that. I don't believe that every religion has a mythology mixed within it. Yeah, I definitely think he's wrong on that.
Well, eh, that at that.
Especially not, I would disagree. I've heard the arguments put forth that Christianity has mythology. I don't agree with that.
Well, mythology in and of itself, to me, what mythology is so people use it as nowadays as a term of derision towards
Hmm.
certain religions, and I get
Right.
that.
So I'm not sure how he means it. Yeah.
To me, at least at the time that he wrote this, and given the further context within the book itself, I don't want to read whole long excerpts from his book because he has the audio book, he has it in print, and in
Mm.
all honesty, almost the entire book is already in video format on YouTube. So if you do
Oh
want to
wow.
see, so if you do want to listen to it, you do want to hear about it, please go watch his videos on his channel. I'm sure he could use the support, even though his channel is much, much larger than mine. However, I, I'm not a person that's gonna just sit there and just read through someone else's content
Hmm.
as content for my show.
Right. Right.
So to me, the way I see him describing mythology in that sense is, the Google dictionary definition of it is a collection of myths, especially one belonging to a particular religious or cultural tradition. And for that, I suppose we would actually need to look at, the root word of myth. And It's a traditional story, especially one concerning the early history of a people or explaining some natural or social phenomenon, and typically involving supernatural beings or events. So, using that very clinical definition of what a myth is, of what a mythos is, yes, Christianity, Judaism, every religion would fall under the category of containing mythology. And that's what the term is being used as. It is being used as an encompassing term to describe the tales being told, the stories being told. And it does say traditional story. It does not specifically state that it has to be
Yeah, like a
fictional.
tall tale or something.
Right. It doesn't
Yeah.
specifically has to be fictional. Granted, up to this point, all myths that we are currently aware of are fictional, as far as we can discern, unless we've somehow in the last few minutes figured out a way to scientifically test for the existence of the supernatural. And so it really kind of pulls away from the idea of the secondary definitions of myth, which is a widely held but false belief or idea, fictitious or imaginary person or thing, such as a mythical being, mythical beast, what have you. But no, that first definition being a traditional story, especially when it's talking about the early history of a people, much like the Old Testament does, much like even the New Testament does, because the way the Bible is structured, all 66 books, at least in the uh, editions that the Protestants
72 or
use.
73, yeah.
Yeah, 66, the ones that the Protestants use. Uh, that was the first one that came to mind. But yeah, 72, 73, if you're counting the Apocrypha, all that fun stuff. Anywhere, between 60 and 70 some odd books in this, in the Bible, it's all about telling the story of the
God's people.
of the early history of the people, of the Hebrews,
Hmm.
and the early Christians when you get into the New Testament and whatnot. So,
Correct.
and that's what I take it to mean at that point, and that's why I say that I feel that it is probably that Aaron Ross is one of the most comprehensive definitions of what a religion is, because
I know
these
he
things.
does debate. He does debate a lot for the or he used to debate for the Bible and Beer Consortium. I do know that he's debated for them
He
plenty.
has debated for them in the past. I think um, one of them was on moral goodness or something like that. Um,
Mm.
I can't remember specifically who is
I think he's
involved.
done more than one debate, right?
I think so. I'm not entirely certain.
Mm. I confess, I really have not. I've never heard a debate of his. I've heard him talk a little bit, but I've never really heard a full debate.
Most of his debating happened back pre 2010. He did a lot of
Mm.
radio debates and things like that, or podcast debates.
Okay.
He debated Bob Enyart a couple of different
Mm.
times. He also debated Ray Comfort, which at this point I think I might be the only person who has not debated Ray Comfort.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but hey, Ray, Living Waters, anytime, buddy, anytime. You're welcome on the show. We'll have ourselves a good old time. We'll talk about evolution and about how you're wrong about everything when it comes to that. um, and here's the thing that the biggest issue that I have with individuals like Ray Comfort and Kirk Cameron. Kirk Cameron used to be funny. Growing Pains used to be a good show. Uh, Personally, my favorite movie that Kirk Cameron ever did was The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. I think that was an old.
Never ever saw that one.
I think that
Never
was.
saw that.
I think that was an old Disney Channel movie back in the '90s. The whole premise of it was kind of goofy, but kind of cool. And when you're 10 years old, it just seems interesting. It's like he gets
Does
electrocuted.
sound interesting.
He gets electrocuted messing with a computer in high school, when a lightning storm happens or some ridiculous sequence of events that would most
Wow.
likely never happen. Um, I mean, just the overall engineering of a building in the 90s probably would not have allowed a lightning strike to carry through and electrocute someone through a computer, even an old IBM desktop.
I
So,
know he does religious movies now, right? I've never seen anything that he's done.
yeah, he's done.
I've heard that he does religious movies now. I don't even know what they're about. I don't even know what.
Most of them are adaptations of books. Like
Okay.
I think he was in Left Behind.
Okay.
Uh,
Never seen any of those.
I never watched that one. I did read the books. If you take them purely as an interesting bit of fiction and look past the religious subtext and connotation, it's not a terrible read. It's not the greatest thing you could ever waste time doing, but it's not terrible. I mean, it's very not bad. Um, and I know a couple of like self help style books or whatever he's done movie adaptations of. I think one of them was Fireproof.
Mm.
Um, I think he played a firefighter or something like that. I
I've
don't.
heard of that movie. I've heard of that
I've
movie,
heard
book
of
or
it.
movie
I
or whatever.
don't
I've
think
heard
I've
of it,
seen
definitely.
it. It was some. It was used as a marketing tool for something that some pastor somewhere put out. It was like a relationship self help book called The Love Dare. I don't know.
Mm.
Somebody look that up. Somebody fact check me on that one. I'm not entirely sure I'm correct on that. If I am, awesome. I'm not sure how, but hey, I'll take it if I am. You know, I got to take the wins as they come, so to speak.
I
Um,
agree.
but anyway, yeah, it's. But see, it's when it gets to that point. Now, I know a lot of people would probably argue that when it gets right down to it, people like Ray Comfort and at this point Kirk Cameron, they would argue that these individuals are religious fundamentalists.
Mm.
And
Oh yeah,
and I would agree. And we've had that discussion before. But
I agree.
but at the end of the day it all had to start from some root. It had to have there's always a nexus that you can kind of roll it back to. And
Oh yeah.
I would say that nowadays, if religion as a whole isn't dangerous, now I'm personally of the belief that almost everything is to some degree inherently dangerous,
Mm.
because there's nothing that this the most dangerous thing any human being does every day is wake up and get out of bed. I mean, you walk
Right.
out you walk outside. There's a million different things that could kill you before you get to work, and I'm not even entirely sure that that is much of an exaggeration on that number. However, however, that doesn't mean a person should stop living their life. It doesn't mean that you should stop just
Right.
doing anything and move into a bomb shelter surrounded by MREs and
Oh
canned
yeah.
beans. I mean,
You could even get a bad match there and end up dying from that. So I
exactly.
mean, you got to live your
You
life.
could get botulism from a can of
Yeah.
beans. I mean, you know,
Yep.
yeah, not everybody can be Jake Gyllenhaal in the movie Bubble Boy.
You're correct. You're right about that.
Oh man, and but I think in all honesty, people need to watch that movie again. Nowadays, Bubble Boy, it. I'll be the first to admit.
I've never seen it. I've heard of it. Never seen it though.
I think you should watch it. Um, it's stupid. Oh my gosh, is it stupid? Um, it's dumb in the same way that the Pauly Shore and Stephen Baldwin movie Biodome is
Okay.
dumb.
I'm
Like,
gonna believe it or not, I've never seen that one either. I have heard of it though. I have
yeah,
heard of it.
it's dumb.
I spend the majority of my time. I'm a very odd person. Like I said, usually whenever I have time to watch a movie or something, it's usually horror.
Oh yeah,
I
no,
am
it's
very
the
weird.
same. Same here, same here. But you know, when you grow up in the '90s, there are a few things that you
Oh,
just
you can't
cannot
avoid.
escape from. You can't avoid them. You can't escape them, and that is Pauly
I
Shore
agree.
movies. I
Oh,
mean,
I've definitely. Oh, I think I've seen a few of them. No doubt.
I mean,
There's a few
whether
that I
it's
have. Oh yeah,
whether it's Biodome or In the Army Now or something along those lines, there's
yeah.
always, and there we go with that little mini thing again. All right, we'll correct that one more time.
I barely noticed.
It's all
I
right.
didn't have it open. I barely noticed it.
I'm not even sure how long it was running. I didn't have Streamlabs up, and we were looking at that definition of R and RAWs.
Oh, right, right.
So and and I found this interesting blog post. It is Tanoro.com, Tanoro.com. If I remember, I will
Mm.
put a link in the description to this particular blog. He does go on to talk a little bit further about Aaron Ra's definition of religion. He says that he likes this definition, that if practitioners of a given religion agree with critics that the topic being discussed is religious, it is probably safe to call it such. However, Aaron does add additional premises, which include doctrines of religious faith, mythologies, rituals, and a belief that the soul can separate from the body and continue its existence. This definition does leave out a few things, though, when you get right down to it. It does leave out atheism and Confucianism. Now, granted, it's obvious that atheism gets left out because atheism, if I've said it once, I will probably end up saying it 1,000 times from now on ad infinitum. Atheism is not a religion. It's not.
Mm. Some people would argue that. Some people will argue that it
That's
is.
fine. They can argue that, but it's not. There's,
Well,
okay. So, it
it does.
atheism.
Depending on what form of atheism you follow, some definitely go along the lines of sounding like a religion in denying pretty much every tenet of a given faith. So some of them do sound like a religious set of beliefs because I've got people I know that are atheists that even without even thinking or even without caring about certain things, they will deny them wholesale just to go along with what modern day popular atheism basically puts forth.
Can you give me an
It
example of
really
that?
can. Yeah,
It doesn't have
let
to be a
me give you an
specific person.
example.
Just a specific example of
Yeah,
something that they have rejected whole cloth, purely
yeah.
purely
hmm
because of atheism. I'm interested to hear that
The
one.
Bible. Yeah, the Bible. I've got a few friends. Some of my closest friends
No,
are atheists. But
I personally
mhm.
reject the Bible whole cloth. I reject it as
Granted, but you listen to what I'm saying though. The point is, there's a big difference. So some of these individuals, without even picking it up or without even reading it or without even having a logical argument to put forth, at least you can present arguments that you think are logical. But some people will just reject it wholesale, just out of the fact that they identify as being atheists.
now, I don't reject the Bible because I'm atheist. It's because
No, I didn't say you did, but some
well,
people, some atheists do.
right, and so I think that is an important distinction to make. That's why I'm actually bringing myself in
Oh yeah.
as a bit of an example, and
Mhm.
that is that no, there are definitely, I'm sure, people out there that do that. That just because they are atheists, they reject
Yeah.
everything about the Bible. Whereas I don't reject the biblical text whole cloth because I'm an atheist. I reject it because I've read it. That's that's why I reject it. That's why I disagree with it. That's why I cast aside, to a good degree, um, my faith is because I read the Bible, I paid attention to it, and found that, especially in regards to science as a whole, it gets virtually everything wrong. I mean,
I would disagree, of course. I've come to it from that perspective as well. I was, for a period, I remember coming from before I wholesale rejected Protestantism. I went through a dark period there where I just really didn't believe a whole lot of things. I don't think it gets everything wrong. I think it gets a lot of things right. Uh,
well, I'm
but
talking about
I mean,
as it comes to science specifically. when it comes down to
Yeah.
science and scientific things, or things that people try to assert are scientific, it's
Yeah, I
just
don't think that
wrong.
the authors were. Yeah, I don't think the authors were trying to make a scientific point. So,
No, I'm not.
with a lot
Well,
of what they were writing, I
I
really
don't.
don't think they were.
I don't know. I think it would. I wouldn't say that they are presenting scientific offerings right off the bat.
Yeah,
I would say
I've
good.
heard arguments. I've heard people trying to promote flat Earth from the Bible
Yes.
and bring up passages and argue that the Bible is talking about a flat Earth.
Well, I mean,
I just don't find any logic there at all. I think
I don't
that
find
I've it's ridiculous. I think.
I don't find any logic there. No, the Earth is not flat. Um,
I don't think it is flat either. And believe
yeah.
me, I've got people that I know that would argue.
Oh, trust me.
Um,
So do I.
wow.
Everybody knows a person, at least one person like this these days. Most of them are online. Granted, unfortunately, I have the.
Believe it or not, some of them get a big platform. Believe it or not, some of
Oh,
them get
trust
a
me. I know
huge
Mark
platform.
Sargent.
So
Mark
I, I,
Sargent.
I, you might be the one that I'm thinking of, but I mean, my point is that some people, a lot of people are going to approach the Bible from a certain perspective and argue that it's trying to teach a scientific point here or there,
Yeah.
but really it isn't. And I don't know who that individual is, but
Uh,
I've seen some of the passages brought up, and there's just no substance to the arguments.
yeah.
But I have shockingly. Um, I don't remember when it was. Somebody pointed me to an online. It wasn't online. It was online being streamed, but it was in a pretty big place. The place was packed with people, and they were debating the topic of the flat Earth. And I had no idea that that movement had as many people as it does have. Wow.
I'm not entirely sure that the movement actually has as many people. Now, granted, yes, I've seen events where they're packed, where they're sold out, where they're standing room
Yeah.
only. I honestly think that, and this is going to sound incredibly mean, and actually, you know what? Yeah, I mean it to be mean.
You think they're going to see the? You think they're going to see the freak show?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think they are
Could
going there.
be.
I think they are going there for the same reason that people went to these nickel, dime, and penny freak shows at places like Barnum's um, and Ripley's. Believe it or not, back in the
It
early
could be.
20th century and late 19th century,
Yeah.
I fully
You
believe
know. You know
that
what?
to some
You know what?
extent
You
that
bring
that's
up a
it.
good point. You bringing up a good point because let me be quite honest with you. If there was an event like that in my hometown near me, I would go.
Oh, absolutely,
Heck,
I'd be there.
let me give you an example. If they told me they were going to have a debate on this topic, and that at that place they were serving craft beer or even relatively good beer, I'm there.
Man, in all honesty, they could have nothing but Budweiser, Miller, and Natty
I'd
Light
be there
on
too.
tap, and I would still
I'm
be
with you.
there just
Yeah,
so I could watch the slow motion train wreck. Because
I
that's
agree. I
because
agree with you. I've been told though,
that is
but I've
all
been told that
any
that guy
debate.
has won a lot of debates. How
I
true is? I don't know if you've heard of any of them. How good is he?
you know, Mark Sargent personally, I don't see him as having won a single debate, especially on the topic of flat Earth. Absolutely not. Um,
Let me pose it for you in a different way.
okay.
Um, Maybe not won the debates, but has he ever caught any of his opponents maybe flat-footed? Pun intended. Flat-footed. I didn't intend that pun at first, but has he caught any of them off guard and maybe made a point that
Not
is no
I would say none that have mattered. Now, has he?
none that have okay.
I am sure he has probably gone into a debate better prepared than his interlocutor to some degree. I'm sure he probably has. That
Okay,
that being said, oh, got a little one there.
that's that. Yeah, she's okay. She won't bother me.
That's okay.
Long as she doesn't grab the beer.
Uh oh, yeah, no. That point, seize the child. Uh, but
So
anyway,
really, you haven't really seen anything of substance from him.
no, not anything of substance. Now, does he have a fairly large following? Yes, he does. What I will say though is that every time he has gone on a television show where he's debated someone or had a discussion with someone that I would say is of substance. In particular, he's been on a couple of talk shows, or at least one talk show, a couple of different times, where he has talked to, in one instance, a geophysicist, and in the other one, a NASA scientist who has actually assisted in putting satellites in orbit.
Oh wow.
So, and also assisted in,
Oh.
and also assisted
Mm.
in sending people uh, to the International Space Station. I mean, so pretty sure he's got a half decent idea on what the shape of the Earth is. I don't know. Call it
Oh.
a gut feeling.
No doubt.
Call it a gut feeling.
Call it a little bit of a gut feeling. Oh,
Yeah,
no
just
doubt.
a little
No
bit.
doubt.
I don't know. Maybe it's the beer. Who knows? Uh, gosh, the amount of sarcasm in here could kill a horse. But no, I mean,
By the way, how is that beer going down?
uh, I mean, in all honesty, it's going down like carbonated axle grease. Um,
Well, now let me toss this at
it's
you.
very stout. It is very stout. This is not a beer that you just sit there and knock back. Like you've seen me sit here and knock back 8%ers.
Would you buy that again?
This particular one, I don't know if I would. I'm not sure this is really kind of up my alley as far as beers go. It's good. It
Okay.
definitely has its place. I think that this, at least from Avery Brewing, to me this seems more like to say, hey, we did a thing. We can do this thing. We can make a beer that has an absurd alcohol content. I mean, and yeah, it's triple your average American Pilsner, such as Bud or Miller. It's definitely up there in the ABV. And in all honesty, the biggest, for lack of a better term, turn off for me on this one, in all honesty, is the peanut buttery taste.
I got you. You know what? Maybe
I
I
love peanut
definitely have to
butter.
try that. I love peanut butter. Oh, you
I
do?
love peanut butter.
Okay.
I absolutely love peanut butter. I
I do
just
too.
think I don't know. See, my thing is when it comes to foods and beverages and things like that, I don't look, judging by all of this that you see in front of you, I don't look like I'm a very discerning or picky eater. Uh, but I do have my
No,
moments. I do have my moments where I'm a bit of a
it
textured
could it
person.
could just mean that you are particular, but you like a lot of what you do like.
I
Let's call it.
suppose so. We'll go with that.
There you go.
Um,
There you go.
and it's like, but oddly enough, as a big guy, like my arms are not as flabby as I would have imagined.
Which is a good thing.
Oh, it's a good thing. It's like I got a bit of a gun there. I don't know. It might just be a
There you
20.
go.
It might just be a 22 or a 25 auto, but it's got a little bit there.
There you go. All you got to do is hit the weights a little bit, and
Yeah.
you can take care of all that.
In all honesty, actually, I think I'm being a bit too modest by calling it a 22 or a 25 auto because my current deadlift is actually sitting at about 345, 350.
That's pretty good.
My bench press and overhead press is my weakest. Like absolute, that's my weakest. But
Oh wow,
I've been working on doing skull crushers with a 25-pound weight to kind of up the tricep game. That way,
very good.
the
Yeah,
overhead presses and the bench presses start to get a little more meat to them. Because my bench press
yeah.
is kind of plateauing at about 150, 160, and
Okay,
to me, I consider that respectable as far as a workout goes because I can get 5 sets of 5 reps out of that.
very good.
So I'm pretty sure my 1 rep max on that is probably in the 200, maybe 220 range.
I
Maybe.
was actually going to say probably 225 or so. I
Maybe,
was going to
yeah,
say
because
that.
if I'm doing 160 for 5 reps in 5 different sets of that, yeah, probably the 220, 225 range. I don't know. I've never actually tried to do 1 rep max with bench press. mostly just worried about squat and deadlift for the most part because all in all, that's primarily the muscle groups that get used if you ever have to pick something up or move something or carry something. It really pretty much comes down to how much you can throw on your shoulders and walk with, or get down to the ground with, or get down to the ground and pick
You're
up.
right.
So that's
Yeah, no doubt.
what I focus on. Uh, but I have this. Uh, I'm not going to call it a boyhood dream. I honestly didn't really consider doing it until uh, last year, middle of last year, and that's strongman competitions. They look like fun.
Oh wow.
Like pick up the big rock, put the big rock on a table. That looks like fun to me. I know. It seems like I could
Oh,
have
it
some fun
does.
doing it.
Oh, it does. It looks like a blast, really.
I'll tell you what. We get into some better shape, or at least I get into some better shape. You and me will go sign up for a novice class one and go see how we do.
I think the only thing I'd worry about is, I have seen some people tear muscles, tear biceps off of lifting those things. So
Yeah.
you really do. You kind of can't just. I've seen people that lift a lot of weights and they're big guys say, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to just go in there and do that." I mean, no, you got to practice before just
Oh,
going in there and
absolutely,
lifting one of
absolutely.
those. Yeah.
Well, see, that's why I was
So,
talking about something like a novice
yeah.
class thing
Oh yeah. Oh
where
no
like
doubt. Yeah, I
the
agree. No, you're
craziest thing
right.
you'll end up
Yeah.
doing is like a 300 or 400 pound yoke carry or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
You're right.
as far as Atlas stones go or things like that, that one, yeah, I'd want to practice on because you know, just picking up a concrete ball's probably going to be a bit of a difficult thing to do, just because overall surface area versus how you have to grab and
Oh
manipulate the
yeah.
object. Um, but
I
something
bet it would
like,
be a lot of fun though. I bet it would be a
oh,
lot
I
of
think it
fun.
would be a blast. Now, I could probably do a Husafel stone carry right out of the gate. Yes,
Right.
it's a slightly irregularly or tombstone shaped rock, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure I could pick it up and carry it uh, with not too much issue. At least in a novice class. Now you get me up into the higher weight classes or higher competing classes. Oh no, um, yeah, I'm not picking up a Volkswagen Beetle and carrying it.
Oh, no way.
uh,
No, definitely not. No way.
but I'm not above trying it. I'm not above trying it.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. Yeah, I don't blame you at all. Yeah. I mean, you definitely have got to get a little bit of practice here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just finding the place and the stuff to practice with more than anything else. Um, but anyway, so
my,
back on
my
to
daughter,
oh,
my daughter has a very, very odd request that I'm going to have to do on the air.
okay.
She
What is
wants
it?
me to put these on.
Absolutely, you gotta. Oh yes, you gotta put on the '90s day glow sunglasses. Absolutely.
Definitely. But yeah, I, I'm going to have to leave them on for a little bit, I suppose. Otherwise, she's going to be really upset with me.
Oh, it'll be perfectly fine.
So yeah, so I do think I'm gonna step up for a little bit, take maybe about a 2 minute break to grab another one from the fridge though, because I have had a good amount of this one, and I want to introduce a new one though.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and introduce something. You can go ahead and step away. I will mute your camera, and you let me know when you're back, and I'll get everything going. All right, so I am here to entertain you all for at least a little while William goes and takes a break, picks up another beer. He wanted to introduce a new one to the group. We're going to see if I can finish this very stout beer by the time he comes back. So, if anyone, please, has questions, comments that they want to throw in there, if you have an opinion on this topic of is religion dangerous, you know, throw it out there. Love to hear your opinion. Love to read your opinion. It will get read on the air. And if you have any questions, absolutely we will endeavor to answer every single one of them to the best of our ability. So, what else can we talk about? Oh yeah, we're gonna bring this up with William here in a little bit, kind of a sneak peek type thing. shooting for another stream sometime soon. It was something that we discussed a while back, and well, I'll just wait till William gets back to kind of drop that bomb. Want to make sure he likes the idea still. Um, been working diligently on trying to get some additional software to help this channel run and do what it needs to do. Looking into potentially StreamYard since Skype has started to become finicky and things like that. But, if I want to use my overlays, it requires a bit of an investment. So, something to think about. Anthony, do you have any questions? Are you still with us? Is anyone out there? I know I'm watching my own show, so I know that I'm responsible for at least one of those watching nows. So, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up real quick. Let's see. Alright, looks like William is back. Alright, William is back, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and turn his camera and his sound back on so everybody can see and hear his beautiful bald face. So,
I went ahead and I grabbed...
Well, hang on. Before you do the reveal, I have an idea. It was something we discussed in the last beer stream that we did back near the end of September. Oh, so many moons ago. We told the viewers we were going to do this, and I really do want to do this for them, and I want to do it for them before the end of this month. So either this weekend or maybe even on Halloween itself. And that is
what's that?
The horror movie stream that we talked about doing.
We've got to do that.
Yeah, so we sit here kicking back and start talking about the various horror movies that we enjoy. The different aspects of them that we like. Do we love them? Do we hate them? Are they just, so cheesy that we just can't get around them? A la 80s Freddy Krueger with his...
I agree.
With his butter knife gauntlet of death. Oh, okay. Hey, it looks like we've got a question popped up from our buddy Anthony Brooks. He's asking both of us, what are our views on Reformed Protestant Christianity? I'm going to go ahead and let you take the lead on that one, William. As a fellow theist, I want to see how that develops, what your critique of that is, or what your agreements are with it. Let's go for it.
Yeah, I used to be Reformed, so I was Reformed for many years. I was a Reformed Protestant before becoming Catholic. My thoughts on it, I disagree with a whole lot of it. And I mean a whole lot, but there's a lot that I can come into agreement with as well. I think if you were to ask me what my key problems with it would be, I mean, we could talk all night long, but let me point to a few of them. I would point to my main issue would be with salvation. That's my issue. How is one made right with God? That would be one of my main issues, and the other one would definitely be, even though some people list it as a bit of a more minor issue, would definitely be the canon. I have big issues with how Reformed Protestantism has and deals with the canon of Scripture. They're rather not really how they deal with it, but their inability to deal with the canon. They can't deal with it at all. I think those would be my
inability
issues.
to deal with canon is now. Is there a particular bit of canon that you're saying that they are incapable of dealing with?
They can't. I mean, at all. They can't deal with it at all. If you were to ask them to point to if you were to say, well, give me an example of an early ancient source for the canon that you hold to, the truncated, shorter canon, they don't have any. They'll try to hearken to Josephus, that doesn't work. They'll try to they can't hearken to any father. Nothing will work. So really what you've got a big issue. The problem is you really, in essence, are not even hearkening to Luther, because Luther didn't go as far as other Protestants later on in history did go in removing those books from the Bible.
They would hearken primarily to John Calvin, correct? That's where Calvinism comes from.
That's a very good point. So you're bringing home the argument right to the heart of the issue, is that My issue is they don't have any ancient pedigree at all. So that's my one of my main problems with them. And really, I know it's a caricature to say, well, some of them think the Bible fell from the sky. I know not everybody does think that, but they have no good answer when it comes to that issue, the canon. And those would be my views on Reformed Protestant Christianity. I have great respect for a lot of them. I've got a lot of friends that are Reformed. I've debated Turton like a million times, and he's a very good friend of mine. We talk very often, and he's Reformed. So I have great respect for them. I just have a lot of issues with the faith. So
Okay. Now, the question that I would have on that one is, this is going to come across as me defending them. It's not really a defense. It's more of just a primary question I have.
clarification. Sure.
Not even just a clarification, but also, I guess you could consider it a bit of a challenge to a certain degree of your particular viewpoint.
Sure.
So, what is the issue with whether or not it's the oldest? I mean, okay, so it doesn't have an ancient pedigree, because you look at how things are from a modern standpoint. You know, I'm going to use scientific exploration as a jumping off point for that one, and that is, okay, we're aware of the scientific pedigree of certain theories, of certain aspects, laws, and things like that, or theories primarily. You know, the plum pudding theory of atomic structure is much older than the electron cloud theory of atomic structure. But we've dismissed that one, even though it's older. That doesn't necessarily mean it's better.
Right, but the problem is that they don't take that tact. That okay. You would perhaps have validity if they went down that route, Drew, but they don't.
Okay,
They
I'm
make
not
the
familiar
argument
with
that
their actual the tag of that one.
their argument is their best argument they can put forth is that their canon is the ancient one, that they're hearkening to the one in regards to the Old Testament, that they're hearkening to the ones that the Jews would use. It's a poor argument. There's just no evidence for it at all. They hearken. The best that they can do is hearken to Josephus, and they're wrong. There's nothing there either. So they are hearkening to an ancient pedigree. They are claiming to have an ancient pedigree in that regard, and they don't. So I think, to me, if you look at it, if you're really trying to get to basics, I think they've got a huge problem there. And by the way, I'm going to pop this open.
Yes, you go ahead and introduce yours.
Let me. Yeah. Okay.
Sam Adams.
Does that come out clear?
Samuel
Okay.
Adams.
So what we have got here is a 2000. I'm going to open it with my trusty beer opener. So what we've got
I got
here
my
is
paint can opener still, so.
hey, whatever opens it, right?
Exactly.
So what we've got here is a 2015 edition of Sam Adams Double Bach.
Oh, very nice. Very, very nice.
I wonder what the ABV is.
Probably somewhere in the realm of 6.5%.
8.8.
8.8. Nice.
8.8. That
I will pull out my next strongest beer. And
do you have it already?
I've got it right here. I haven't poured it yet, but I'm about to. This is batch number 49. It is a barrel-aged series. This is ale aged in rum barrels. Now I'm actually really intrigued on trying this one, because I do like me a bit of rum every once in a while. And no, we're not talking Captain Morgan or Kraken. We're talking like actual decent rum.
Real rum.
Yeah. Anyway, this is... You're talking about a Sam Adams Double Bach.
Correct.
This is called the Fimbulwinter. This is a Belgian-style quintuple.
Oh, wow.
And it is rocking This was bottled on November 30th of 2017, and its production was 1,151 total cases. Oddly specific number.
Wow.
16.9% alcohol by volume.
Oh, goodness. Wow.
Going into the trusty KN root beer glass. This is quite a bit lighter then
Yeah, I was going to say not too light, but yeah.
no. It's got some particulate matter in there. This is not a clear beer. I don't know if the camera will pick that up, but that is definitely not a clear beer.
By the way, Anthony, did that answer you
I hope it
sufficiently?
did answer his question. Now, I guess I should probably answer as well. He did ask me as
That,
well.
you're right.
What are
You're
my
right.
views on
You
Reformed
got to
Protestant Christianity?
you've got to take a stab at it as well.
You're right. I do have to take a stab at it. In all honesty, my answer for Reformed Protestant Christianity is my answer to essentially all forms of Christianity. I don't see any evidence that supports that supports the claims being made. There's no scientific way to test for the supernatural. Therefore, there is no legitimate rational reason in my eyes to positively and confidently assert that a deity of any kind exists, let alone a specific one of a specific brand of a specific version of a specific region of religion. I mean, because that's really what RPC is. That's what Reformed Protestant Christianity is. It is a very specific of a specific. I mean, you've got the specificity of it's a Middle Eastern born religion. You've got the specificity of it's an Abrahamic religion. You've got the specificity of it's Christianity, and then you got the specificity of it's a particular breed of Protestant. I mean, like, you want to get down into the sublevels on that one, it's pretty far down there as far as the distillation process, if you will, goes.
Yeah.
As far as that particular belief system is. And I know I've had this discussion with Michael Lofton before, and we may have discussed it a time or two on here. Is that y'all believe that the number of sects of Christianity being somewhere in the 30,000 plus range to be a bit exaggerated?
Right.
So
That
why do
is
you think
correct.
it's exaggerated? Now, granted, I mean, I personally don't believe that it is exaggerated.
Well,
Do I
I don't
think?
know.
Well, hear me out on
I,
this one.
I
Hear me out on this
mhm,
one.
sure.
Um, the reason why I don't think it's exaggerated is because when you look at things from a mathematical standpoint, just basic statistics, um, you have a near infinite amount of interpretations that can be drawn from virtually every single verse in the Bible, probably from even every single word within the Bible. And
Oh,
so
granted,
and
granted.
so at that
But
point for there
but
to
not all of those would be for them, and I'm not defending them at
no,
all. I
I'm
would
not saying
never,
they would not
but
always be
not
for
all of
them.
them for them would be
However,
sufficient
right. However, I'm
for
going a step
to
further with
cause a
this.
fraction.
Right, I'm also going a step further, in that you also have these, for lack of a better term, these like kind of church oligopolies or oligarchies, if you will. Like here in the United
Mhm.
States, we have the Southern Baptist Convention. You know, there are different forms of baptism that all subscribe to the SBC.
Right.
But they are
Oh yeah,
different.
no,
But
I
they
agree.
are different versions of baptism. They may all be in the SBC, but they're not all just, you know, your First Baptist Church or whatever. And so
I agree.
it's not just that every word could be interpreted differently, or every verse or every chapter of every book could be interpreted a bit differently from one person to the next, or from one group of people to the next. Uh, there's also how they interpret doctrine from those interpretations. So, I mean, you've got a two-level interpretation going on. You've got your interpretation of what do you think this means, and then your interpretation of what do you think the implication of that interpretation is trying to tell you. And so,
Yeah, no
and so
argument,
at
and
and so at
I
that
do think it's very
point,
possible. Yeah.
and so at that point, when people say there's 33,000 different versions of Christianity, my answer is, wow, there's only 33,000.
Yeah, you know what? Where I think that they make that they defend the argument that there's less is, and there very well could be well more. I've argued before in the past that they're more, and I've gotten attacked for it. There very well could be more, but they'll argue and they'll try and say, well, you know what? There are not that many because not all of them differ on core essential doctrines. I don't, you know what? I really don't know,
But the
because
thing
some
is,
really do. I mean,
but
there could be more. I mean,
there could be more, there could be less. I'm not going to argue that it has to be that
the,
33,000
the
number.
fact is that they're so fractured. That's the real issue in my eyes. The fact is that there's no unity there now.
True.
Now I've got people. Somebody will say, "Well, you know what? There's no unity within Catholicism." Well, there's much more unity within Catholicism because you've got the Catechism, you've got the teachings of the Church. You know what the official teachings are, and within Reformed Protestantism, it really is not the same.
Uh, I don't know. I would have to analyze that one, that specific one, a little bit further. I mean, but granted, that's coming from a theistic perspective, so
Hmm.
I'm sure the two of y'all would differ quite widely, at least in some ways on that.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
My thing at the end of the day really just kind of comes down to I don't see much of a difference between one religion and the next, especially when it comes
Oh,
to
there's
things.
huge.
Uh,
Yeah, but
there's
there are
there's
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 huge
huge
differences.
differences as far as the group perception is. Catholics perceive themselves far differently from Reformed Protestants or even from Baptists. I mean, yes, like two big things. Two, a thing that the Protestants and or the Reformed Protestants and the Catholics have in common that is very different from the Baptists is the consumption of alcohol. The Catholics do, the
Yeah,
Reformed
that is very
Protestants
different.
do. Baptists, teetotalers. In,
Right.
in large scale, they are straight up teetotalers, and but that's the thing is I'm not making these minor distinctions between the two, and what seems like gaping chasms to those within the faith to a lot of people outside of it. And I think this is where perhaps there's a fundamental disconnect between perhaps
Oh
atheists
yeah,
committing with
perhaps somebody from the
specific
outside. Yeah.
bran- competing with or speaking to specific branches of religions is that okay, you see these gaping chasms of difference from your side
Mhm.
of the issue versus the RPC side of the issue.
And
How
and you know what? There are huge differences.
and
I'll
I'm
give you an
sure there
example.
are. Okay, go for it. Aside from the
Let me just give
canon,
you an
outside
example.
aside from the canon.
Oh no, no, I'm going to approach it from the way an atheist would. I'll just tell you what Robert Price has told me,
Okay, yeah,
and
no,
Loftus.
no.
They've told me themselves that debating a Catholic is a whole other realm, as opposed to debating a Protestant. They've said that it's very, very different. And
Oh
I can
yes,
tell you
absolutely,
firsthand
definitely.
the
I
way
agree
I
with that.
the way I approach debates when I debate atheists is very different than the way a Protestant would. I would argue, and I know you probably would disagree. Maybe I would argue that a Catholic has it a lot easier when they are arguing against an atheist because even if the atheist would disagree with the sources, or even if they disagree with the argument wholesale, a Catholic can bring up the early church fathers and use certain arguments there. A Protestant can do that as well, but an educated atheist could catch him for that with that and point out how the early church fathers don't believe what they believe in a lot of things. And if they were to use the early fathers, they open themselves up to being attacked in many other realms, whereas a Catholic would not in the same way. I mean, I think you know exactly the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay, well, for those who may not get the point that you're trying to make, let's go for something a bit more specific, something a bit more concrete. Let's
Yeah.
just okay. You've been both a Reformed Protestant and you are a Catholic
Yeah.
now, so I
I can give
think
you an example. Do you want an example?
yes, so let's go with an example. But here's the thing: I'm going to take. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be Drew the atheist, and will you just bring up a topic? I don't know, maybe existence or something.
I'm gonna bring up. Let me actually. I'm gonna use an argument that I've used before in debate.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you an example. I'll give you the example from a debate on the resurrection that I've used before. I have heard the arguments from Dan Barker before when I debated Dan Barker that the earliest followers of Jesus did not believe in a bodily resurrection. Now, as an atheist, you can tell me, well, there's no scientific proof or whatever, fine. But whenever you get specific like that and claim that the earliest followers didn't believe in a bodily resurrection, then what I would in turn do, and which what I
That
did do
incurs a
was I
pretty
think
big
that
burden of proof, I would think.
there you go. You're right.
And see,
So
but
I mean, as an atheist, I would he should
that's
have approached it from a different way.
right. But I see as far as that goes, that's not an issue in particular. Looking at a difference between a Catholic and a Protestant, as far as that goes, because
Okay, but
at the
hold
end
on,
of
I
the day,
wasn't
at
done
the end
yet.
of the day, you both believe in the resurrection. You both believe
But
in that.
hold
You
on,
both believe in the bodily resurrection
right?
of Christ.
But
But
hold
what
on.
I
I
see
wasn't
that
done.
as
Let me give you. Let me show you.
okay,
Let
go
me
for it.
continue. I'm almost done.
Okay.
So in order to prove the point, I would point to the Bible, which I did, and then I would point to the early fathers, which I did do, and to point how they did believe in the bodily resurrection. An astute atheist, which Dan Barker is not, would have would catch a Protestant if a Protestant tried to do what I did, and an astute atheist would destroy him and point out how those early fathers didn't believe many things that he believes. Dan Barker's not an astute atheist. I'll tell you who is. Bob Price is.
Oh,
And if you
absolutely.
try to pull that
Yes,
on Bob,
yes. Robert Price, hands
if you
down.
try to pull that on Bob Price, he would rip you to shreds. So a Protestant trying to use the early church fathers on Bob Price to make that point that I used would have been ripped to shreds because Bob, as you know, Drew, is a very astute atheist.
Oh
So
well,
it
not
really
just
depends what
that. I
atheist
mean,
you get a hold of.
well, yeah. Yes, it would depend
He's a
on the individual.
theologian.
Yes, he's a
And he's an
theologian.
atheist, but he's a theologian.
And
He knows his stuff.
well, not only that. I mean, he's probably one of the quintessential
Oh,
New
yeah.
Testament scholars of today. I mean,
Yes.
God, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed talking to him, and not the last time he was on the show because I was at the Renaissance Festival that weekend. I'm still kind of upset about that. I wish I had found a way to delay going to Ren Fair by one more weekend or another 2 weekends
Oh,
even, so I could have been a part of that because
I remember that.
I definitely want to talk to Bob Price. I want to get him on this show. We've been trying, man, have we been trying. And I may just have to suck it up and deal with just not having an overlay for one episode just so I can get Bob Price on and run through StreamYard. And I honestly think that I'm going to do that.
He will be there in Dallas when I travel to debate John Loftus. He will be there in the audience, and
Oh, that's going to be awesome. I look
he
forward.
that's
Yes, I
gonna be a
want
lot
that.
of
That
fun.
is definitely someone I want to meet in person. Oh my gosh. The three biggest people I would say in the atheist community that I personally would want to meet. I'm not going to say I'm fangirling or anything, but these are just individuals that I've followed, individuals that I've paid attention to. And I don't even have a top 5. I have a top 4. And it's Dr. Price, Matt Dillahunty, Aaron Raw, and Dr. Richard Carrier. Now, that's in no particular order.
Right.
That's just how they popped off the top of my head. Now, going back to Anthony here for a minute in his question, like I was saying, at the end of the day, I don't see these big gaping chasms of difference between one version of Christianity and the next, because it ultimately boils down to the same boilerplate issues of where an atheist is going to disagree. And for any atheist,
I see Anthony wrote something.
I'm going to bring that up in a minute.
Can I touch upon that?
I'm going to bring that up in a minute. I saw that, and that's why I steered us back to this topic, and that's why I'm addressing it a little bit further and explaining my position on this. Now, I don't disagree with Bob Price and him becoming a New Testament scholar. Not at all. It's a phenomenal piece of literature. It's got some interesting things in it, some very wonderful stories. Now, all that being said, that's not for everyone. That's what Dr. Price chose to study. And more power to him for doing it. I love that he did. It's amazing seeing someone teaching as a theologian who is not a member of the faith.
He blows guys like Barker out of the water. Blows them out of the water.
In all honesty, he blows tons of different people out of the water.
Times. He blow him out of the water. He blow Dawkins out of the water. I mean, he's the guy's, and you know what, the guy, even though you're not a believer, the guy's very
Bill
respectful.
Craig out of the water.
I think he beat Bill Craig in their debate.
There's even theists that I would say that he would blow out of the water. like William Lane
Yeah.
Craig, for sure. Frank Turek, absolutely. Um, but getting away from all that, the way I see things is that, okay, yes, Roman Catholics are different people from Protestants. They see things differently, they behave differently, they behave towards each other differently, and they see things differently when it comes to doctrine, to dogma, to interpretation, even to translation in some manners. What I will say is this, is that to an atheist, to your average run-of-the-mill atheist, which I wouldn't say I'm an
Yeah.
average run-of-the-mill atheist. Who knows? Maybe I am. Maybe I'm below average. I very well could be. But
You know your
to
stuff pretty well.
to your average atheist, to your average run-of-the-mill person, we don't care. We just
Yeah.
don't. It doesn't matter to us what your disagreement is with Anthony over canon or over
Oh yeah.
how many particular wives or how many particular sons Abraham actually had. None of us care because at the end of the day, the both of you come down to the same boilerplate issues that we have issues with as atheists that we feel need to be answered and need to be discussed, and that is the existence of the deity that's being claimed. If there are any objections to evolution from a religious standpoint, those need to be answered. If there's a literal interpretation proponent or a literal interpretation component of anything in Genesis or Exodus from the theist, that needs to be answered. Now, those are a bit of more caveat issues. The two big boilerplate issues would be the resurrection and the existence of a deity. Now, granted, there are
So
some people like myself who definitely do fall into the Dr. Carrier camp and the Dr. Price camp based on what I've read, based on what I've listened to from both of these individuals, and other things as well. Even looking at some of Bart Ehrman's stuff and his attempted responses to some of these, I just I'm actually finding myself questioning whether or not the man portrayed as Christ actually existed. Now, that's something we can get into at a later time. In all honesty, that's something I would much rather bring up
yeah,
in a
we could do
discussion
we could
with
do
Bob Price himself. Absolutely.
yeah we could do a show on that. But I do want to touch upon what Anthony said.
Yes, I'll go
He
ahead and read
said
that off.
yeah.
He says that he would disagree with you on the issue of the canon and that the RCC view on authority is circular. Okay, so
Okay, so
Anthony, I would
I do
like you
want
to
to
clarify that a little further as to what exactly
yeah.
you feel is circular within their view of authority.
But well, hold on.
But
I'll tell you this. I don't think he even has to,
okay,
because I'm not going to hearken to authority.
okay.
You know, Anthony, I'm going to make it easy for you. You don't even have to. In fact, I think it is.
Well,
I think
gosh, I
it's
should just sit back and.
not even. Yeah, I think it's not even part and parcel to the conversation, Anthony, to say you disagree. The view is circular. I don't care. We're talking about the canon. I'm not talking about Trent, or I'm not. Oops. Let me put that back. I'm not talking about Trent. I'm not talking about Trent or any decree in the canon. Um, I'm talking about the canon of Scripture. Tell me, and this is going to be really tough for you, Anthony. You're not going to be able to do it in a million years. Show me one example of an early father or an early Jewish source that has your canon that you have in the Old Testament, the way you have it. Show me one that would list the books that you've got the way you have it. I don't care about authority at all. I don't hearken to authority. I don't hearken to Trent or to Florence or anything
Well,
when I talk about the canon. Because if I'm talking about an unbeliever, to an unbeliever, why would I do that? Or somebody
true,
not Catholic, why would I do that?
true. Now, a question
So
I do
you
have
can
for
toss
you.
authority out the window.
Now, a
Hmm?
question that I do have when it comes to authority and whatnot, if you're talking about asking for a particular, for any church father, early church father, or early,
Early writer,
or
anybody,
Jewish
anybody.
rabbinical scholar, early Jewish writer of any of the text, that I actually have a question on because
Sure.
from a lay perspective, that's going to come across as an argument to authority because you're asking them to put forth an authority that they believe agrees with them. on the matters of
Well,
canon.
well, but
So
it's
at
not a
what?
matter.
So
Well,
so
no,
how would that
that's
not
not true
be?
though,
How would that
because
not
it's
be an
not
authority?
authority. Because Josephus wouldn't be an authority for him. Josephus would be an example, but Josephus and his ideology and his theology would not be an authority. He would
Okay.
just be an example, perhaps. I'm only giving you an example. I don't know if Anthony would hearken to Josephus, but I can tell you right now, Anthony has nobody he's going to mention. If he mentions Josephus, that really opens the door to him. Just he's going to fall to a trap that he doesn't want to fall to.
Okay.
But he doesn't have anybody. He doesn't have anybody he can mention, and I don't say that arrogantly at all. But I've studied the issue of the canon for I don't know some over 15 years. Um, there's just nobody there. I've heard the arguments. By the way, I think if anybody's debated the canon more within Reformed Christianity, I think it would probably be James White has debated the
Yeah.
issue of the canon the most, and he's made a horrendous presentation of it. He doesn't know what he's talking about because
Really?
he's
How
taking his
so?
arguments from other people. Because he's not they're not his arguments. He's taking them from other gentlemen, and the arguments are wrong. So usually that happens if you take your arguments from other people, you present them, and they're usually wrong. I'll
Oh,
tell you who does come up with something good. Believe it or not, Turton fan, who is not even who's a big James White follower, but he does have some original arguments that he has presented that are they're pretty good.
okay. So my question, I think, would be, now, are you talk? Who specifically are you talking about that James White is pulling from that is wrong? Are you talking about people like I don't know, like maybe Bonson or Van Til or R.C. Sproul? Anybody of that
No, I
nature?
mean guys like no, I mean guys like William Webster, guys like King. I don't mean any other scholars that would be maybe popular. These guys are not as popular, but he has taken arguments from them, and usually they are arguments that kind of sound sophisticated. They sound good, but they're underneath the surface, as you know. When an argument sounds really good, when you kind of dig, and you look behind there and you find no substance, and you really have got to either do better research or come up with something different. But my main point is this: is as a Catholic, and I'm not going to say Catholics only, even though the Orthodox can do it as well. We can
Mm-hmm.
hearken to early patriarchal figures, if you wish, and we can show how the books that we've got were used as holy writ, and
Right
then we
now,
can point to early councils. What is a Protestant going to do? As you pointed out, Drew, their patriarch, their source is Calvin, and really that becomes very problematic because if they are hearkening to an ancient source, but Calvin is the earliest they can go, not even Luther, then to me, I think that's a big problem.
I wouldn't even see an issue with granting them Martin Luther to a certain degree. No, I mean,
Right, right.
I
I
would
mean, he
say
got the
Luther,
wheels moving. He got the
right?
wheels moving.
Because
He moved the books to the back of the Bible, and people began to say, "Hey, what's going on here? What's going
well,
on here?" He
he
didn't,
he
but he
also
wasn't so
fathered the
audacious
Protestant
enough to remove
Reformation.
them. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. You're right. I kind of don't like putting all of the burden on Luther though, because you kind of almost every other Catholic you run into, they're going to throw Luther out. They're going to goodness, my daughter made a mess. They're going to toss Luther out, and they're
Yeah,
really going to just beat him over the head.
well,
But
but there again,
yeah, I guess he
it's
got the
he
wheels moving
start.
on
Well,
it.
it's like he started the process. I would
Yeah,
say he's probably
you're right.
he's probably the grandfather of modern Reformed Protestantism. Um,
Yeah, even though they would probably hate hearing that, you're right about that, Drew.
Probably so, but there again, you see in every format, in every when you look at a religious faith, especially something like Christianity, especially when you're looking between um, Protestantism and Catholicism, I would see it as okay. Yes, Luther got the ball rolling, but it's the same thing with Peter and Paul when you're talking about Catholicism. Peter and Paul, Cyril, Theodosius, people like that, these early church fathers, they are who kind of started and got the balls rolling as far as particular doctrine and dogmas, Council of Nicaea, what have you. And that's what rolled into and what formed what is Catholicism today over time. It's not
Well,
any one
I would just
person. I don't think it's any
well, I
one
would
person.
disagree though. I think if you're talking about Nicaea, the issues dealt with in Nicaea, I believe, are
Well,
biblical, and they were
right.
taught well before Nicaea.
Okay, so, well, then only addressing church fathers, people like Cyril, Theodosius, Peter, and Paul. people like that. I think that each one of those people, as history went on, they lent their own perspective,
Oh, no doubt.
and that shaped the religion, that shaped the doctrine, that shaped the belief structure, how things are done, how things are interpreted, the ritual uh, within certain practices, things like that. And so then you have Martin Luther, who has already had all of this nearly 1,000 years of information brought down, distilled, filtered, what have you, down to him in the 1500s, in the 16th century. And then he starts this movement of Protestantism, and then that develops further on and on and on ad infinitum until we get to today.
Yeah.
And so now we have a version of Catholicism and a version of Protestantism that fundamentally disagree with each other on a
Let me
lot
give you
of
one example.
things. And hang on.
Mhm.
But I think as a whole are very different from perhaps how Theodosius or Cyril saw it in his day, or as far as Protestantism goes, very
I
different
don't
from
agree
how
with that,
John
though. Yeah,
Calvin
I don't
or
agree.
Martin Luther see
Oh,
that.
Calvin, yeah. Oh, yeah, no doubt. But I would argue that if you look at what look at Cyril of Jerusalem or Alexandria, look at what they say when they're talking about the Mass. You'll be blown away how the language
Oh,
lines up almost perfectly
I'm not even
with the
talking about the Mass.
catechism. Yeah,
I'm not even talking about the
yeah.
Mass
Well,
or catechism in and
let
of
me give you another
itself.
example.
I'm
Let
talking
me give you
about
an
as a
example that
whole,
yeah.
an
Let me give you
overall look.
yeah. Let me give you an example. I'm going to give you an example that I've used many times. I don't use it um, usually towards atheists, but I use it usually when dialoguing with Protestants.
Okay.
Um, and I'm going to give you an example of a church father where you can give him whatever name you want. Let's call him Barnabas.
Okay.
Barnabas,
Cool.
whatever. Barnabas, whatever. Barnabas from the year 350 or 450, whatever you want.
Okay.
Barnabas dies, right? Barnabas dies. Barnabas was he was a priest, okay? He was a priest. You want to say bishop or priest, whatever. He was a priest. He would frequently preach from the pulpit. Barnabas dies, and he's in heaven, and God is talking to him. And one day, God comes up to him and says, "I'm going to send you to earth. I'm going to give you one day to return to earth. You do whatever you want. Of course, not sin. You return to earth, enjoy good food, enjoy good drink." So Barnabas returns to earth, right? And Barnabas says, "Well, I'm here on earth for 20. I've got a full day. Got 24 hours. I'm going to go to church." Barnabas reaches a highway. On the left hand side, you've got a Protestant church. On the right hand side, you've got a Catholic church. The example I always give is which church, if Barnabas would go into it in the modern day, would most resemble the church of his time. And I argue that if he goes to a Protestant church, you've got nothing resembling an ancient church. You don't have images. You don't have prayer for the dead. You don't have a complete canon of scripture. You don't have veneration of Mother Mary. All these things that were present from the very beginning. Yet, if you were to go on the right hand side and go into church, as you can look, you can Google the Dura Europos Church. He
Mm-hmm.
goes in there. You've got images. You've got a baptismal font. You've got prayers of the dead. You've got books that he would recognize that are absent from the Protestant canon. And you have what was prevalent from the very beginning, the veneration of Mary. Which church would he recognize the most from his time period? I tell you one thing, not going to be the church on the left hand side with a guy up there asking in a suit and tie, asking for your donation. It's going to be the church on the right hand side. I've given that example a million times, and even if a Protestant would disagree with me, I have the evidence that can prove. Even as you, as an atheist, if you disagree with the teachings, at least you have to admit that those, even if you disagree with the validity of them, you have to agree that they are ancient and have ancient pedigree.
Right, but at the end of the day, my I guess overall beef with it would be that to me an ancient pedigree doesn't really communicate a whole
Right.
heck of a lot.
Oh yeah, I know from your perspective. Yeah,
Talking about
no
your
argument. I know you believe that.
now talking about references to the Virgin Mary. Um, I'll admit I actually Googled this one, but I did remember that it was probably third century. I just couldn't remember exactly who uh, recorded it, and the first liturgical reference to the Virgin Mary, uh, as far as we can find, is as part of the ordination rite of a bishop, comes in the early part of the third century from Hippolytus of Rome. and that Marian
Right.
feasts appeared in the 4th century, and the feast of the memory of Mary, Mother of God, was celebrated supposedly August 15th in Jerusalem by the year 350, so mid 4th century. Just a point of history for anybody
So very early.
who wants to talk about that one or who wants to address that one. However,
Right.
one thing I will say is I think you might be missing what I'm talking about. Is like I'm sure yes, just rip Barnabas out or whatever and throw him in the modern day in the middle of the road between two churches, a cathedral on one side and a Protestant church on the other. Yes, I'm sure he would probably ultimately go into the cathedral, for sure.
Right. He would
However,
recognize it much more.
he would recognize it much more. However, what I'm saying is that yes, while he may recognize the building, while there may be things that he recognizes about it, if he were to look at Catholicism as a whole, as it exists and is practiced, and the issues that it deals with today, would still be, I would say, let's just say from 100 foot up view. Okay, we're not talking
I
like
would
a
say I would say doctrinally it would be the same. I would say the
doctor.
issues it deals with would be very different.
Yes, the issue is definitely very different. I would say he would
Of
even
course, no
disagree. I would
doubt.
say he would even disagree with some of the papal decrees on certain topics. You know,
Which
such
one? I don't agree with that. Which one?
for instance, when it talks about homosexuality.
How so? I mean, they were even more. They spoke against that even stronger back then. I don't think
Right?
you would
No, no,
disagree with
no,
that
no.
teaching
I'm
at
not. I'm
all.
not. No, 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 no. You're missing my point. That's precisely why I think you would disagree with it because
Oh, okay.
you have Pope Francis talking about things such as accepting gay marriage, accepting homosexual people as
I
congregation
don't think he's
members.
ever said that. Yeah, I disagree. I don't think Francis has ever said he'd accept gay marriage. I disagree. I don't think he's ever said that. He has said accepting gay people, but not gay marriage. No, he would never ever say that. Those words are definitely being twisted out of context.
Okay, well, I'm not
Um,
trying to twist anything out of
yeah,
context, but he's saying
maybe
that.
they would have.
But
Maybe they would have been upset.
he is saying that homosexual tendencies are not a sin. Now that's
Right.
something that I would see someone like
What?
Cyril being vehemently against.
Maybe, but there's a big difference. That is not doctrine. That's not a dogmatic teaching,
Okay.
whether or not a tendency would be a sin or not. Because the teaching is that the homosexual act itself is a sin. But perhaps he would have, because even today, when the church certain theories and things that are not dogmatic, we can have differences on. For instance, if one theologian or one bishop were to say that they believe in limbo, and I could say, you know what, I don't believe in it, there could be disagreement on that. So, there still is room for disagreement. But when we're talking about dogma like the Immaculate Conception of Mary, maybe Mary being her nature being sinless from the very beginning, or the teaching on the Eucharist, things like that, those we call those dogmatic, and those I do believe he would definitely be in line with the teachings on those.
Okay.
Anthony never replied. I wonder if he's just probably drinking beer himself and said, you know what, I'm just going to drink beer and I don't want to engage with these guys anymore.
Well, you never know. Um, I think that perhaps the discussion of Pope Francis and his stance on gay marriage as a whole, if I remember right, that
I'd
comes.
love to do a show on that.
Well, I think I'm not saying that he as Pope endorses it. Um, I know there was something. Gosh, I want to say it was New York Times, but he wasn't known as Pope Francis, and he had not yet ascended to the papacy. He was still, Bergoglio at that point, as far as that goes. Hang on, I'm looking it up now. Uh, yes, New York. This is pulled from Wikipedia, but it is actually sourced from uh, the New York Times uh, edition of March 19th of 2013 on gay unions, a pragmatist before he was a pope. Now, this was written by Simon Romero and Emily Schmall. The New York Times considers that Bergoglio may have supported gay unions in Argentina
No,
only as a negotiated
I,
compromise,
I, I've
but that
heard
his context as
I've
a
heard that
pope
a
is
million
very
times.
different. and that in
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that a
2015,
million times. There's no evidence.
but in 2015
Yeah,
that
but there's no writing from him.
But in 2015 Francis declared that the family is threatened by growing efforts on the part of some who to redefine the very institution of marriage, and suggested that same-sex marriage disfigures God's plan for creation. So I want to make sure I'm representing both sides on that one, because yes, his words as Pope Francis have definitely been an anti-gay marriage overall message, although in support of, or not necessarily in support of, but accepting of uh, people who are LGBT. Um, but that there may be
Yeah, I don't
something
think
as
he would come
as a
out straight out and
compromise.
attack them.
Yeah, well, I mean, in this day and age, no one would probably no one would come out and straight up attack really anyone on almost any issue, unless um, you're the unpopular party these days, which I think is the Republicans that are the unpopular ones nowadays. I don't really keep up with it as much as
You're
I
right about
probably
that.
should.
You're right about that.
Now, I do agree with, and this is going to come up. This is getting back into politics a little bit when we talk. I'm not talking about religion being
I'm
specifically
telling you,
dangerous.
we've got to do a politics show.
You know what? We probably should. And at that point, I guess the name I've been kicking around, maybe just do a whole new channel, just call it the Political Reformation. Uh,
I'm
and
telling you, we're probably going to, a lot of people are probably going to get very mad. But hey, what are we trying to do? We're trying to stoke up conversation, right?
really, at the end of the day, yes, that's the primary thing. Is I want conversation to happen between individuals. Now, there are a few things that I don't believe are worth discussing at to some degree, and I'll actually back this up with some reasoning too, and tell me whether or not you agree or not. So, I know this may come as a shock to you, William, but there are some theists out there who believe the Earth is flat.
Mm,
I
I'm
don't.
shocked.
I don't believe debating with those individuals is necessary at all. I don't believe it's
No,
necessary to
no, not
debate
at
them.
all.
Uh, now, while I don't think it's,
Hold on, give me 1 second, okay?
oh yeah, sure. While I don't think it's necessary, looks like we lost William there for a moment. However, he will be coming back. Um, we're going to postpone here for just a minute and look at what we got going on for chat messages at this point in time. Still looking a little stagnant as far as that goes, but we are going to get William back here momentarily. I'm going to try and call him back now. Let's see here. Go ahead and try this out. Of course, while we're finishing up this lovely beer. I actually really do enjoy this one. Let's see. He was tapping his earphones the last I saw, so I'm probably thinking that, given the nature that he was using wireless Bluetooth earbuds, that the battery probably went dead in those. So he's probably replacing those or switching out to a different set of headphones. So I do apologize. Please bear with us momentarily so we can get that back up and running, everybody. Let's see here. Well, Anthony, if you have any more questions, now would be the time to go ahead and try and field them to us. Anybody else who may be watching, I'm showing only 2 watching right now, so probably just myself and Anthony. And we're going to see how this all goes. So we started streaming about 2 hours ago. We might keep this going for a little bit longer. I don't want to run too terribly late tonight because unfortunately I do have to work in the morning. But we're still going to have a grand old time. We'll finish this out with a couple more topics of discussion as far as whether or not religion is dangerous, and go ahead and bring the free-form discussion to a bit of a close, and then look at potentially talking about our next show. I know we've got one surprise in store that we want to try and do that focuses on specific philosophers, but we'll bring that up here in a little while. Let's see here. Do apologize for the dead air, people. I am sending William a text message to see what's going on. Uh, but for now, I am going to go ahead and put us on a be back soon and get that going here. Let's see. Show me studio. In the world. Why is it doing that? Huh, that's cool. Okay. Okay, everybody, we are back from our short intermission. Having some issues here. Uh, I just got a message from William. Looks like a personal health issue has kind of cropped up here, so we are going to go ahead and call this stream for this evening, but we will pick this back up at a later date. I do apologize that we were having to cut this a little short today. However, we will, again, like I said, pick this topic back up, and I still have one more beer to show off to everybody, so be looking for that in the next episode. Until next time, my name is Drew with the Atheist Reformation. Please like, comment, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell icon if you want to hear or see more from this channel. We are working on getting a concrete release schedule for our supposedly bi-weekly beer streams with William. We will have special guests on from time to time, so we are looking forward to having that. And also looking forward to having Michael Lofton on from the Reason and Theology channel here in the coming weeks once his very, very busy schedule has some time for us. So he'll be discussing theodicy, or the problem of evil. But until next time, have a great evening. Look forward to seeing y'all again next time, and be excellent to each other. Thank you, and have a good evening.